What's up guys, my name is Ace, and Call of Duty Vanguard has now been out for a full week, so it's time for my week 1 review. I didn't want to jump the gun on this and upload it way too early on. I wanted to at least have a solid week of playing the game and figuring things out about the game before creating this review, and I'm going to be sharing the things I like about the game, things I dislike about the game, and the things that are just straight up broken right now that definitely need to be worked on. And without further ado, let's just dive right into it, and let's start it off with some positivity. Let's talk about the things I'm liking about Vanguard so far. Now, we're probably going to be able to blast through this section really quickly since I'm basically just listing things that I like. The fact that this section is going to be shorter than the others doesn't mean that I hate this game by any means. I'm actually having a really good time with it overall, despite the issues, and there are issues. In fact, at this point, I would say this is the most solid launch of a Call of Duty game that we've seen for many, many years. So far, at least for me, things have been running pretty smooth. The servers seem to be holding up quite well, although there are some server-related issues that I will be talking about a bit later. But I haven't had any massive crashing or completely game-breaking bugs or anything. And on top of that, we've got the most content we've seen for a very long time in Call of Duty with 16 regular multiplayer maps. We've got tons of different weapons, and each one of those weapons has so many unique attachments to it that can make them perform like a totally different gun. So it almost feels like there's 100 guns in this game with how many different things that you can do with it. And it's honestly a little bit overwhelming how much we have in the game right now. At this point, I haven't even played with every single gun in the game yet because I've been spending so much time in custom games just trying to figure things out and test things so I can figure stuff out to share with you guys. And when it comes to the maps, there are still a few maps that I think I've only ever played once or twice, and this is just due to the sheer quantity of maps that we have at launch, and we haven't seen this for a very long time. So that right there is massive. Also, when it comes to the grind, there is a lot to grind for. Not only do we have the atomic weapon camo, which is the mastery camo for getting gold on every weapon in the game, we've also got operator challenges to work toward. We've got all our guns that we have to level up as well. There is so much to work on, and I really don't see myself getting through all of this stuff and completing all of these challenges until probably February or March of next year. Additionally, when we're talking about gameplay, the gunplay feels great. The character movement, in my opinion, feels great as well. It basically took all of the good things when it comes to character movement and everything from Modern Warfare that I liked, and it came over to Vanguard without bringing all that unnecessary nonsense that I disliked in Modern Warfare. Additionally, as for the maps themselves, I would say I like most of the maps. There are a few maps that I'll talk about in a bit that I really don't like, I'm not a fan of, but for the most part at least, I'm liking the maps that are in the game. And I love the fact that they introduced combat pacing, where you can select basically how many players you want in your match at any given time. So if you want a really chaotic experience, you can go with Blitz, and if you want a more slower paced, or I guess more traditional Call of Duty experience, it's not necessarily even slower paced, but slower paced than Blitz at least, you can go with Tactical. And it's nice to be able to just basically flip a switch and go from absolute chaos to a more controlled experience. On top of that, the game, in my opinion at least, looks great outside of some of the bugs that we're going to be talking about today. And just overall, I'm enjoying myself with this game, and I think this is an amazing starting point going forward, as long as a bunch of these issues that I'm about to discuss get worked out. Because at the same time, even though things are feeling great and I'm having a generally good experience with the game, there are some pretty massive issues that I can definitely understand would be turning people away. So let's move on to the broken section of this video. These are the things that are just objectively not in a good place right now, and they're either bugged out completely or they're just horribly imbalanced at this point. And the first big thing that currently is completely destroying any semblance of weapon balance, this is the bug that is currently going on primarily with the Vital Proficiency combined with the 30 Russian short ammo type. And this applies across several weapons. The top two right now are the STG and the Type 100. And with these guns, you can get a 2-shot kill to the body with a highly controllable, highly accurate, great handling full auto gun. That's not right. That should not be the case at all. It makes basically everything else irrelevant if you're playing in more of a competitive setting. If you're playing against similarly skilled players, you won't stand a chance if you aren't using those guns against people that are using those particular setups. So that's something that I really hope they get on top of quickly. I suspect we will see an update to that in the near future, probably with the first title update. That should be fairly high up on their list of fixes. And on that same topic of weapon balancing issues, clear weapon balancing issues that are just objectively broken right now, I would say the current shotgun balance is in a terrible state, especially when you start looking at certain attachment combinations. The shotguns on their own, the base shotguns, they seem fine to me. It's just certain attachment combinations. I don't know if they're bugged and they're not supposed to be working this way, or if it was intended, but they just didn't realize how broken this would be. But with the shotguns, with the right setups, they are getting kills that they have no business getting without even having to hit multiple pellets. You just have to hit one pellet. Basically, if you just have an enemy somewhere around the center of your screen and you pull the trigger, they're gonna die. And that's a clear balancing issue as well. And it's completely destroyed Das House, I would say. Next, I've been seeing reports of a bunch of challenges that simply don't work. Apparently, there are some camo challenges that require you to use a specific attachment that doesn't actually exist on that gun. I've also been hearing reports that with certain guns, you can't get them to max level, although that may have been fixed at this point. But it does appear there are several issues when it comes to that grind and that progression where people are simply hitting a wall and there's nothing they can do about it because it's just straight up broken. On top of this, a common bug that I'm experiencing quite a bit, and a lot of my viewers have apparently been experiencing as well. This only applies on certain maps for me at least, but this is this strange lighting bug where it seems like a spotlight is following me around the map. And while gameplay-wise, it is kind of nice in some situations because it actually lights up dark shadows and stuff around me, it's also really hard on the eyes and really jarring to see that, and just kind of strange that you have this spotlight following you around from your perspective. So I hope that one gets worked out soon as well, because it's not really a good look for the game when you have this bug going on. Then something that a lot of people have been noticing, myself included, is it seems like sometimes your perks just straight up aren't working. Like there's a bug that disables your perks, so they're not doing anything for you. I've experienced this with the Forward Intel perk. I've experienced this with the Tactician perk. I'm pretty sure I've also experienced this with the Ghost perk, but that one's a little harder to tell for sure. But in either case, there is a clear issue there, and that does need to be resolved at some point as well. And again, I hope this is something they can get on top of soon, because that is straight up broken, and it is causing some pretty big issues in the game. Now, finally, for my objectively broken section, I'm sure there are more things I could have added to my list, but at this point, these are the ones that really came to mind as I was creating my list here. This is the spawn design. As it is right now, this is definitely one of my biggest gameplay-related complaints, especially in Domination. I'm primarily a Domination player, always have been in Call of Duty. And in Domination, I'm noticing the spawn design just makes no sense whatsoever, especially since I started running the Forward Intel perk where I can actually see where enemy players are spawning at the exact moment they spawn. I'm seeing so many very clear issues with the spawn design where enemies are spawning in places they have no business spawning, or I myself will do the same. Spawns are flipping all over the map, and there doesn't seem to be very much rhyme or reason to why it's flipping all the time. And in a game mode like Domination, spawns are extremely important. It's one of the big features of Domination is the game mode has always been about capturing your home flag, capturing the B flag, and then holding map control. Map control is a huge part of the skill gap in Domination. And with the current map design, it doesn't seem like map control even exists whatsoever, or any sort of discernible flow as well. It also doesn't seem to matter which flag you hold in Domination. It seems like enemies are just going to spawn wherever they're going to spawn regardless, and this actually prevents me from wanting to play the objective. What's the point of capturing the A flag when, as soon as I leave the A flag, the enemy's going to start spawning on the A flag, even though there's plenty of room for them to spawn at C? It just doesn't make any sense, and it is really seriously harming my enjoyment of Domination. But it's not just Domination, that's just the primary one that stands out to me since it's my preferred mode. So yeah, that's the main things that stood out to me as being completely broken and just objectively not working the way they should be working right now. And therefore, I would say these should be the highest priority fixes at this point. Now, let's move on to the final section though, and this is where we're going to get a little bit more subjective, although I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to agree with me on a lot of these things. But I just wanted to share a list of things that I just don't like currently in Vanguard, and I feel like if they could rework them in some way or just remove them or fix them, then the game itself could improve quite a bit. And let's start it off with the first thing I noticed while playing solo, which I don't do anymore while playing Vanguard because it was a horrible experience. Something I've noticed while searching for matches solo is I almost always get into a match that's already in progress, which means it's usually on the losing team because people are more likely to leave when they're losing. So you're usually going to be spawning into a losing game with no chance of winning, and that's not completely out of the ordinary for Call of Duty, and it is important to fill lobbies, but the big issue that I'm having here is, unlike previous games, where if you would stick it out to the end of the match if you joined late, you would basically be guaranteed a fresh match after that. That's not happening in Vanguard for some reason. I've actually joined several matches in a row where I join the match in progress. I think to myself, you know what, if I just stick it out, I finish this match, then I'll get a fresh game next time. But of course, since we have disbanding lobbies in this, which I also hate, once I get out of that match that I finish, it will just drop me into another match in progress on the losing team with no shot of winning that game. This is absolutely horrible design in my opinion. I definitely was okay with the trade-off in the past where if you stuck out that game in progress to the end, you would be guaranteed a fresh game for your next match. And that's how it should be working in Vanguard, in my opinion. Or better yet, even though I know this is a stretch to ask for, stop disbanding lobbies. Keep the lobbies together. If people want to leave and research for a different game or a different mode or roll the dice with their quick play filters, let them do that. Don't take the choice away from us. Let us stay in a lobby if we'd like to. Going off of that, of course, I'm just going to quickly mention the skill-based matchmaking feels like it hasn't really changed compared to the past couple years. It still feels quite strict. It seems like it will adjust quite quickly based on your recent performance as well. Of course, I haven't done my full skill-based matchmaking study yet. I'm going to wait a couple weeks for things to settle down before I do that. But just based on feel, I don't think anything changed here, which isn't a surprise. I just wanted to mention it in today's video. Now, after that, a little thing that I just find annoying and I don't really like, and I'd like to see some adjustment to, is the MVP screen. After you finish the game, you're forced to watch this MVP screen, and then you get to vote for whoever you want on your team that performed well or did something interesting in the game. And I'm not a fan of this to begin with, but at the very least, I'd love them to tone down the amount of time it takes for you to vote. I think it should be like 5 to 10 seconds at most as far as the voting screen goes. So you're not just stuck there sitting and waiting, watching these stupid animations that I really don't care about, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same way. I could at least be more accepting of it if that timer didn't last as long, or if somehow you could skip through that. It would be nice to not have to sit through that after every single match. Next up, I did want to talk about a few maps that I just don't like in the game, and these are subpens. It's just too open in my opinion, too much verticality, too many angles you can be shot from at any given time, no matter where you are in the map, it feels like. Decoy, similar situation. I find on Decoy, it's hard to control angles, especially since basically every wall can be destroyed. I don't really like the flow of that map and the way it plays. Even though I love the colors and the art style of that map, I just don't like how it plays. And then finally, Demyansk. I don't know if I pronounced that right. That one, I just think you shouldn't be able to get onto the rooftop of the church or the other building that's across from the church as well. I think that totally breaks any sort of flow on the map. And yeah, I just am not a fan of those maps and wanted to point that out. But like I said at the beginning, I am liking most of the maps. These are just a few that really stood out to me that I don't like at all. After that, let's talk a little bit about the time to kill in the game. And my thoughts on the time to kill in Vanguard is the base time to kill. If we're looking at the base weapons with no attachments and no headshots, I think it's great. I really like the base time to kill and the base weapon balance. However, once you start stacking certain attachments or you start mixing headshots in, the time to kill can get ridiculous. There are certain attachment combinations, even going outside the broken ones like Vital and 30 Russian Short combined. Even outside of those completely bugged out combinations, there are some other combinations that are clearly intentional, and also they just result in way too fast of a time to kill, in my opinion, for core game modes. If you get in the right lobby of people that know what they're doing when it comes to building loadouts, it can feel like you're playing hardcore when you're playing core, and that's not what I sign up for when I search for a core game mode. If I want an extremely fast time to kill, I'll play hardcore. Same thing goes with headshots. I think on a lot of the guns, it would be nice if they were to tone down the headshot multiplier a bit, especially the really good guns by default, like the STG-44. I think that should have a toned down headshot multiplier. I don't think one single headshot mixed in with body shots should be able to help the same way that it is right now. Whereas with some of the more weaker guns, sure, that's where you could maybe leave a really powerful headshot multiplier in order to make up for the fact that outside of those headshots, the gun is going to be a bit weaker. In either case, I just think there's some great room for improvement when it comes to time to kill, and it would be nice if they took a second look at certain attachments and attachment combinations. Next up, a minor complaint that I have, but it is something that is annoying. Player collision. It would be nice if they could tone down the player collision, especially friendly player collision. Like if you have a teammate that's mounted on a doorway, in some situations, you literally cannot go through that doorway. You can't push that player out of the way. You just straight up can't go through that. And that's a problem. And I hope they tighten that up a little bit. After that, something that I haven't done a lot of detailed testing with, but I will be in the near future, aim assist. Aim assist feels even stronger than it has over the past couple years, and it seems like there's been a huge power creep when it comes to aim assist over the past few years in Call of Duty, where it's like it just gets stronger and stronger with every Call of Duty that releases. It's gone too far. It is too strong in its current state, and I honestly think this is also leading to that perceived time to kill issue in the game, where people are just able to snap onto targets so much more effectively than before if they're using a controller, because the aim assist is just so strong and it grabs on very, very strong. Now, obviously, aim assist is needed, and I'm not calling for the elimination of aim assist. I just think it's too strong in its current state, and it should be toned down, in my opinion. Then another fairly broken thing right now is the Bayonet, especially when you stack it with various other attachments and perks and proficiencies. I just think the Bayonet charge should be toned down a little bit. Another thing I shared on the channel last week is aim down sight spread. Basically what this means is with many of the guns in the game, while aiming down sight, when you pull the trigger, the bullet doesn't necessarily go right where you're aiming. There is some randomness coded into that, and I just fundamentally disagree with this sort of a game mechanic in a game like Call of Duty. If you want to keep guns in check at longer ranges, add more recoil, add more idle sway, add another damage drop-off even, so it takes you more shots to kill at those really long ranges. Don't make it so the bullets don't go where I'm aiming. This is just a mechanic that I will never really be on board with. I will admit some people I think have been exaggerating this a little bit and thinking that it's coming into play far more often than it actually does. But with certain setups, if you're not paying attention to that accuracy stats, it absolutely can screw you over at even mid-ranges with certain weapons. And it just leads to a terrible feeling because you can't see this aim down sight spread. You can't see why you're missing this shot that looks perfectly on target on your screen. And that's just frustrating and jarring and doesn't need to be there. Like I said, there are plenty of other options if you want to keep guns in check at longer ranges. Now, finally, one last thing I wanted to talk about. I have been open about this in the past, but I just wanted to bring it up again. I don't like kill streaks, and I feel like objective game modes are suffering very harshly because we have a kill streak system instead of a traditional score streak system. Not talking about Cold War score streak system, but a traditional score streak system I think would go a long way into improving objective game modes. And if anybody from Sledgehammer is watching, I really hope at some point in the future you'd be willing to add in score streaks as an option. Just let us toggle it. If we want to use kill streaks, let us use kill streaks. If we want to use score streaks, let us use score streaks. I think objective game modes would be so much better off if we were actually incentivized to capture flags and play the objective, because as of right now, I actually find myself avoiding objectives when I otherwise would totally be all over that objective, but I look at it and I just see, it's not really worth the risk. I think I'm going to avoid it for now because I'm starting to go on a bit of a streak. Whereas if it was a score streak, I would absolutely be jumping on that flag. I also hope something they're willing to add down the road, and I feel like this is something they probably have planned for down the road. I hope they add the Specialist Strike package where you can earn perks instead of your streak rewards. I think that would be a great addition, especially since we have the V2 rocket in the game. I think I would have a ton of fun playing with that and getting perks instead of my streaks, but that's something for down the road. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on my initial Week 1 review and feedback for Vanguard. Of course, I'm sure there's a bunch of other things I could have added to the list, but these are the primary things that really stood out in my mind as I was preparing for this video and making my lists. In general, like I said, I just want to reiterate, I think this is one of the best launches of Call of Duty that we've had in a long time, and there's so much potential with this game, but they really do need to get on top of a bunch of these issues quickly. Otherwise, I think they're going to be bleeding players pretty fast. And I will say, if you're somebody that's been on the fence about buying this game, and you've been waiting for more reviews to come in, I would say probably hold off for another update or two. Let's just see what happens after a couple big title updates, and see if they manage to work out a lot of these issues, because if they do, I think it only goes up from here for this game. But if they don't get on top of these things in a reasonable amount of time, then the game may be in a bit of trouble. But with that, those are just my opinions and my experience so far with Vanguard after a week of playtime. Of course, I'd like to hear from you guys in the comment section below. What are your general thoughts on the game so far? Are you generally enjoying yourself? Do you think this is going to be a really good Call of Duty game, or it already is a really good Call of Duty game? Or do you feel like it's in a bad state and it just needs way too much work? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.